A champagne with royal ties and rebel heart. Zero malolactic, high Chardonnay, crisp as tailored tucks. But is tradition enough to outshine the competition? By the end of this pour, you'll know exactly how it scores across 5 categories: grape, taste, history, price, and how it fights in its weight class. Welcome to Sip Me Maybe, the podcast where we swirl, sip, and spill the truth about what's in the glass. I'm Julia, and here we take wine from grape to glass and rate everything in between, from the vines and the vintages to taste and, well, the price tag. Nothing gets a free pass. Every bottle earns its score. And before we swirl, well, today we're not gonna, but just a quick disclaimer. I'm not a sommelier, just a wine lover with strong opinions and, well, a soft spot for a good pour. This is a judgment-free zone, no snobbery, no side-eye. I'll share what I'm tasting, and you're always welcome to share what lights up your palate. Let's take this one from story to sip. If you survived this week without crying in public, rage texting your group chat, or Googling, can I fake my own death and start over? Congratulations. You've made it. You're here, and that alone deserves a pour. Today's bottle, it's not just wine. It's a lifeline. The kind you keep in the fridge for emergencies, post-meeting meltdowns, or, well, when Mercury's in retrograde and your patience isn't. Let's dive in, sip by sip, and see if this one earns a permanent spot in your survival kit. Without further ado, let's meet Lanson Le Black Label Brut, born in 1937, courtesy of Victor Lanson. Bold by name, crisp by nature, and always dressed like it's 5 minutes early to a black tie affair. And proudly sponsoring my good decisions and, well, bad decisions, and everything in between since 2023. This isn't your creamy, cuddly champagne. Lanson is sharp-suited, straight-backed, and proudly different. The house was founded in 1760 and is still rocking the style that says, I age, but I don't soften. It's fresh, it's firm, and it refuses malolactic fermentation like a house with no shoe policy. Lanson isn't just old, it's ancestral. Our story begins in Reims, the unofficial capital of Champagne. Tucked into northern France, just 45 minutes by train from Paris, Reims is more than just a stop on the wine trail. It's where the region's legacy begins to take shape. Why Reims matters? This is a city where soil meets soul. Beneath the surface lies ancient chalky limestone, remnants of prehistoric seabed. These porous, mineral-rich layers aren't just beautiful geology. They're perfect for carving out deep, cool cellars where champagne can age with quiet grace. That's why so many of the world's most iconic champagne houses call Reims home. Veuve, Ruinart, Pommery, Taittinger, and Lanson. Their bubbles may rise, but their stories are grounded right here. Reims isn't just a place you pass through on the way to Champagne. It is Champagne. In 1760, the house was founded by François de la Motte, a magistrate in Reims with more than a civic duty on his mind. His house predates revolutions, railroads, and even the word champagne as we use it today. Champagne could refer to a still wine made in the Champagne region before sparkling product took over. Originally, the wines were bottled under the name de la Motte, a nod to a founding family. But as the house grew, so did its ambition. François' son, Nicolas Louis de la Motte, saw the need for steady commercial hand and brought in a trusted friend and fellow Reims notable, Jean-Baptiste Lanson. Their partnership flourished, and in 1837, the house officially changed its name to Lanson, marking the start of the new chapter, but with the same bloodline and the same devotion to structured, expressive champagne. But behind the name lies a deep lineage, one that quietly connects some of the Champagne's most powerful families and finest wines. Let's talk about the Lanson family tree, because this isn't just the wine story. It's full-blown champagne sitcom, and the plot twists deserve their own season on Netflix. You've got brothers, sons, cousins, each one armed with a gift for bubbles and a flair for drama, leaving the Lanson nest and taking their talents to houses like Salon and Laurent Perrier. Not just joining the industry, but shaping legends. It's a strong bloodline and an even stronger mousse. Preparing for this episode, I had to draw a little helper for myself to make things easier. I've created a little family diagram so you can follow along because, well, it was hard for me. Side note, if you're wondering about the photo of Michelle de Nonancourt, well, she was famously private, so no public images remained. Starting with the name that appears in more than one legendary champagne house, de Nonancourt. Marie-Louise Lanson de Nonancourt, born into Lanson family, didn't stay in its shadows. After marrying André de Nonancourt, she found herself widowed during the World War II, and instead of retreating, she took over the struggling house called Laurent Perrier. She rebuilt it cellar by cellar, bottle by bottle, and passed it to her son, Bernard de Nonancourt, who would go on transforming it into one of the Champagne's most respected names. So yes, one Lanson daughter gave Laurent Perrier its modern soul. But the Lanson family's reach didn't stop there. Salon, the ultra-rare single parcel Blanc de Blanc founded by Eugène-Émile Salon, a man who believed Chardonnay from Le Menil-sur-Oger didn't need backup singers. When Eugène passed, the estate quietly transformed through his sister and then into hands of Michel Bouchet de Nonancourt, his niece, and notably not a Lanson herself by blood, but by a marriage. Michel married into Lanson family and, without much fanfare, folded both Salon and its sister house de la Motte under the Lanson banner during the mid-20th century. For a time, the crisp backbone of Lanson, the cut elegance of Salon, and the approachable grace of de la Motte all lived under one roof. That is until 1988, when both Salon and de la Motte were sold to Laurent Perrier. Yes, the very house shaped by Marie-Louise. A full circle moment. Champagne history loves irony. Through it all, Lanson kept its distinct edge. Literally. Awarded by royal warrant by Queen Victoria in 1900. Its wines flowed through state banquets and coronations with its Maltese cross label front and center, and not to its father's devotion to the Order of Malta and its values of purity, honor, and craftsmanship. But where the other houses chased roundness and cream, Lanson held its line. My friend here refused malolactic fermentation, preserving that sharp, apple-bright acidity. It used minimal dosage, resisting the temptation to sweeten the profile, and it favored long lees aging for structure, not softness. Legacy takeaway: Lanson is a house of lineage and paradoxes, noble yet defiant, a birthright to royalty, a marriage to Salon, and a sister to Laurent Perrier. It has never been the loudest in the room, but it's always been the most composed. When you sip Lanson, you don't just taste champagne, you taste a dynasty that never caved to comfort and Let the sharpness become its signature. Every great love story has a beginning. At mine, it started not with roses and candlelight, but with a bottle of champagne. Staring at me from the fridge like it had something to confess. Not this exact bottle, well, of course, the OG vanished long ago, but just like this one. One day I swung open the fridge expecting leftovers, and there it is. This unassuming bottle, I glanced closer and nearly questioned my sobriety. Pinot Noir, a red skin grape in my bubbly. I hadn't had a sip yet, and apparently I was already seeing things. Then another line jumps out, 100 crews? Excuse me, 100? I thought wine came from like a vineyard, singular. Suddenly, I'm 20 minutes deep on Google, unraveling grape genetics, vineyard maps, and royal endorsements, like I've stumbled into some sort of sparkling Illuminati. That was the day my universe tilted on its axis, and the Sip Me Maybe journey began. Lanson, as it turns out, pulls grapes from over 100 different crus across Champagne, nearly half Grand Cru and Premier Cru, prestige, backbone, and dash of royal approval, all hidden on a label I almost ignored. Each variety plays its part. Pinot Noir from Montagne de Reims adds power and tension. Chardonnay from the Côte du Blanc brings minerality and finesse, and a touch of Meunier from Marne Valley softens the edges with fruit and charm. Fermentation takes place entirely in stainless steel tanks. No oak, no distraction. This preserves the purity of the fruit, the vivid aromatics, and the clarity of each varietal expression. But here's where Lanson breaks from the crowd. They skip malolactic fermentation intentionally. Most Champagne producers allow this secondary fermentation to occur. It converts sharp malic acid, think green apple, into softer lactic acid, think cream or butter. The result is a rounder, smoother mouthfeel. But Lanson, they say, no. Preserving that bright, mouth-watering malic acidity. The effect, a wine that's fresher, more linear, and taut, with a tension that lifts the fruit and sharpens the finish. Even their non-vintage cuvée, like Le Black Label, is aged a minimum of 4 years on the lees, twice the legal requirement. When yeast cells gradually break down, atolyze, they release compounds that add bready, brioche, nutty, yeasty, or even creamy notes to the wine. This extended aging allows for the development of the subtle autolytic notes, hints of brioche, almond, and complexity that evolve naturally without needing to mellowing effects of malolactic. It's a rare balance. Energetic acidity meets slow age depth. With MLF, your Chardonnay might taste round, buttery, and mellow. Without MLF, it will be sharper, fresher, and more mineral-driven. Most champagne goes through it to smooth out acidity, but Lanson skips it by design. In short, Lanson isn't trying to smooth things over. It's crafting champagne that's precise, structured, and unafraid to stand a little taller, speak a little crisper, and finish a little longer. The result, precision over plush, lift over luxury. My revelation. I love how this wine lists all the grapes that they use on the label. I love when the label talks to you. It's just, even if you're not sommelier, you can educate yourself, and I think that's quite fascinating. So on the bottle, I see 50% of Pinot Noir, 35% of Chardonnay, and 15% of Pinot Meunier. Number of crus, 100. Grand and Premier crus, 50%. This is probably the only label that I know that actually tells you everything. To me, that's a stamp of quality. At the heart of Lanson's signature cuvée is carefully structured blend that balances strength, elegance, and subtle charm. Pinot Noir is a backbone. It brings power, structure, and that beautiful tension you feel on the mid-palate. Think red currant, cherry, and a certain quiet confidence. It's that gives the wine its spine. Chardonnay, the soul of the finesse. Chardonnay brightens the blend with citrus zest, floral lift, and chalky minerality that lingers long after the sip. It shapes the clean, precise finish of Lanson is known for, especially in the absence of malolactic fermentation. Meunier, used sparingly but meaningfully. It softens the edges, rounds out the fruit, and adds just enough approachability to keep the structure from feeling too austere. This cuvée is Pinot forward, offering depth and muscle, but it finishes like a whisper of Chardonnay, clean, lifted, and mineral-driven. And to ensure consistency from year to year, Lanson incorporates 20 to 30% reserve wines into the final blend. These are aged wines from previous vintages, carefully stored and blended in to add complexity, maturity, and balance. A signature move that gives the wine both stability and nuance, no matter the harvest. In short, it's a champagne built on strength, sharpened by precision, and softened just enough to keep you reaching for the next glass. So yes, firm, fresh, fit for crown, King Charles approves, and honestly, so do I. Why does Lanson age its champagne in chalk caves? Long before stainless steel tanks and air-conditioned warehouses, winemakers in Champagne turned to nature for the perfect cellar. Beneath the city of Reims, where Lanson was born in 1760, lie ancient crayères, chalk caves carved out by the Romans over 2,000 years ago. Think about it. The underground cathedrals are naturally cool, dark, and perfectly still. Prime real estate for wines that need time and attention to find their voice. And they're not just little cellars tucked away under the house. Some of these caves stretch for kilometers, vast enough to feel like an underground city. They're extensive, and certain pathways even have street names, a whole subterranean network dedicated to Champagne's slow, graceful aging. When you're tasting Lanson, you're not just sipping fruit, you're actually tasting Roman stone royal legacy and 260 years of unbroken tradition, aging in silence beneath the streets of Reims. Let's talk about why you should never swirl champagne. You should never swirl champagne. And here's why. Unlike still wines, champagne doesn't need help opening up. Swirling releases the bubbles too fast, flattening the delicate aromatics like citrus, chalk, and brioche. The bubbles do the lifting for you, carrying those aromas straight to the nose. So skip the swirl. Let the effervescence rise slowly. It's been waiting years for this moment. Swirling still wine is poetry. Swirling champagne is pop fizz tragedy. Let the bubbles rise. They've waited long enough. On the nose, Lanson opens with a burst of green apple and lemon zest. Sharp and clean, like morning air. Beneath that, there's a gentle lift of crushed white flowers. delicate and fresh, followed by just a hint of biscuit or almond, a subtle nod to its time on the lees. But it's never overpowering. On the palate, it delivers what it promised. Electric freshness. You'll taste orchard fruit, pear, and crisp apple up front, anchored by a citrus-driven brioche and finishing with that unmistakably chalky minerality that defines so many Reims-grown cuvées. It's not a plush or creamy, it's precise and linear, a champagne that refreshes before it seduces. Ideal with oyster sushi or goat cheese tartlet. This wine doesn't blanket the palate, it sculpts it, leaving a crisp silhouette behind every sip, aged for a minimum of 4 years on the lees. That's double the legal requirement in Champagne. This extended lease aging enhances finesse, complexity, and longevity, while keeping Lanson's signature freshness intact. Usually found in the range of $45 to $55 per bottle, Lanson Le Black Label Brut offers exceptional structure and craftsmanship for the price. This isn't champagne that leans on creaminess or sugar to win you over. It leans on precision, acidity, and time. With 4 years of lees aging and no malolactic fermentation, it drinks like wine that knows it's been aged but hasn't lost an ounce of its edge. Crisp, focused, and quietly complex. It's a bottle that feels far more sophisticated than its price tag suggests, making this one a smart pick for anyone who prefers freshness over fluff and clarity over crowd-pleasing roundness. Against bottles like Veuve Clicquot, Pipe Heidsieck, or Moët and Chandon, Lanson feels drier, leaner, and more angular. It doesn't try to please everyone, and that's its power. It's the champagne for those who don't want their bubbles softened by butter. If most champagnes at this price point are vanilla bean gelato, smooth, creamy, easy to love, then Lanson is black cherry sorbet. It's vivid, taut, and a little tart. Not made to melt into the background, but to wake up your palate. Where houses like Moët and Veuve lean into softness and charm, Lanson stays brisk, structured, and unapologetically bright. It's not dessert, it's refreshment with an edge. Let's score this one. Grape composition and classic Pinot-driven champagne with fresh, precise balance of Chardonnay and Meunier, solid structure, though not the most complex blend in the region. Tasting profile, zesty citrus, green apple, and the signature Lanson tension. Crisp and refreshing, but it doesn't quite hit the layered depth of ultra-premium cuvées. History and legacy, a house with centuries of tradition and pioneer in avoiding malolactic fermentation. And an unbroken legacy since 1760. Price versus quality? Well, I think it's an excellent value for a champagne with this pedigree and precision, though there are cheaper grower options with similar vibrancy. My friend here stands strong against other non-vintage champagnes in its class, edging out many on freshness and finesse. After rounding out the numbers and, well, merely full glass of honesty, I'm giving Lanson Le Black Label a crisp 94 on a sip score. It's near perfect, but what keeps it from flawless 100? Lanson Le Black Label is razor sharp, refreshing, and full of heritage. That's true. But it plays safe. You get precision and pedigree, yet it stops just shy of that goosebump depth you find in the very top cuvées. Well, you can't put the cork back in the bottle of champagne. I but we can call it a wrap. I'm Julia, and this was Sip Me Maybe, the podcast where every glass has a story and no sip goes unnoticed. Sip wisely, never swirl champagne, and I'll see you the next pour.